Hiya. So I've been debating this video for quite a while now. It's an update on one of Vinny's, not most recent, it was the update before, the appointment before, from his consultant paediatric neurologist from Leeds. We was told quite a lot from the appointment that was done virtually. We got a report through. And within that report actually said so much more than what we expected. All we expected really was basically to see, for them to see how severely disabled he is, to see exactly like what is wrong with him, things like that. When Vinny first got diagnosed with dystonia, obviously, even that's a shock. You look into dystonia, and then we found out that obviously part of his brain was damaged. But even within the past 4 years of fighting the dystonia, having all these other issues like coming along, obviously for a 4-year-old, he's not walking, talking, using speech, nothing. Out of everything that I have thought of, like why, everything, I have never ever in the past 4 years thought about what's his life expectancy. In this report, it actually says about his life expectancy. I think that was one of the hardest things to read, to hear. Obviously, you do have so much hope and faith that your child will get walking, will use some sort of like form of communication, but you just never think about life expectancy, especially with something that is quite common. So like dystonia, I'd never heard of it before. It can affect any part of the body. Vinny's obviously got it head to toe. It's obviously a term where all the muscles contract together and it stops you from using the muscles. So for Vinny, it's anything. Like if he tries smiling, sometimes the dystonia affects his smile and it turns into like a crooked smile or something. If he tries reaching out or pointing or picking something up, his muscles can contract and obviously stop him from doing that. Can affect anything. Like with Vinny, it obviously affects head to toe. That's it. Like I wrote down as briefly as I could. I say briefly, it's 2 pages, but I don't mean like, you know, it's like sections of what was in the report. And then I just thought if I just go through it briefly, then it sort of gives an update to everyone that has been supporting him and following his journey, on sort of where he stands now, what's going on, and sort of what his future looks like. So as I said before, like we've always had so much hope and faith. We still do. It hasn't changed anything, but we've always like thought we're getting walking, whether it's like with a frame, like, you know, it's just something we've always hoped for and looked into. So the first little point, you get a gross motor function classification system. You get 5 levels and Vinny has been placed at level 5, which is the highest level. He has severe bulbar muscle dysfunction in the face. So this explains all of the drooling that Vinny does, the unsafe swallow, the bulbar muscle dysfunction just basically affects like this area. So yeah, that's what makes it difficult for him to eat. Vertical gaze palsy. So we've noticed since Vinny was about 4 weeks old, 6 weeks old, he's always looked like up and like to the side like that. And obviously we just thought it was him kind of thing. We just always thought he was looking up. We didn't really think nothing of it. We've also noticed in the past couple of years that he finds it difficult to look down. So he will make eye contact, he will nearly always, like very often, look up. but not, I don't actually think I've ever seen him look down. If he goes to look down, he doesn't do that. He would drop his head. Cerebral palsy, that's always been a flag because we've always been told dystonia, and then the past couple of years on his hospital letters, cerebral palsy has been coming up. So we've been questioning it, and then we're getting told by one doctor, no, another doctor, yes. And then in this report, it actually mentions cerebral palsy. So now we're like, right, okay, it's got severe dystonic cerebral palsy associated with severe motor disability with total body involvement for the rest of his life, which obviously we was aware of. You know, it's not a disability that's going to go away after a couple of years. He's got this for life now. He's not likely to achieve any form of independent mobility. So like I said, if we get him walking, it's going to be with a frame, some sort of support aid. He won't be doing anything unaided. He will always be dependent on a wheelchair for outdoors use. He is at risk of developing hip dislocation and scoliosis, so he has a checkup every year. It's called a CPIP, so he has that every year. He has hip x-ray every year. He's not likely to obtain the head control to dress or feed himself. He will always be dependent on carers and will have gastrostomy peg for the rest of his life in order to meet his nutritional needs. So we sort of knew that as well. That was the point of going for the peg because if like anyone remembers, he did have the NG tube like through his nose. And they realised that this was going to be long term. So we opted for the peg instead, which is, in case you don't know, in his stomach. Communication difficulties are likely to remain the same for the rest of his life. So he might be able to use some words. We might get him to use some sort of speech, sign language. We have noticed like he's starting to, it looks like he's waving, hello, goodbye. He puts his hand to his mouth for hungry. Obviously I can't do anything about that. He's purely milk fed at the moment through his tube. So when he's telling me he's hungry, if it's not near his milk time, I'm sorry child, there's nothing I can do. But I'm hoping that that'll change and he will start being allowed some sort of food in the future. He's not likely to obtain the ability to use speech, so obviously I just explained. He might be able to use some words in the future, he might not ever. It's all a big if and maybe. Not likely to become independent for toileting. He's not likely he will be able to live independently or achieve any form of employment. I think that's sort of a tough one. You sort of know that he's always going to be dependent on someone. Always. But I've always seen it as, I mean, it's quite wrong of me. And obviously I've realised that now I have got a disabled child myself. But any form of disability, there's got to be some sort of work out there, like make them feel included. You know, telling someone they can't work because of their disabilities, that is wrong to me. Personal opinion. Sorry, I've got hair somewhere, it's driving me mad. Ugh. So yeah, I'm hoping that in the future there is some sort of job out there that he will be able to do. But obviously that's many years away. He's only 4. So now we're on the life expectancy. This is really difficult to understand. My mum had to explain it to me and I still don't even understand it 100%. So what I did, I'm literally just going to read all of that out. I couldn't shorten it because I didn't know how to. Basically, at the end of all this, his life expectancy is estimated around 31 years of age. Assuming that, this is all going to be explained in what I'm going to read out, but assuming that Vinny doesn't doesn't continue with any issues, I think would be the words. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, if with Vinny's respiratory issues, his unsafe swallow and everything, I could next year or in the next few months be like, right, I'm going to start him on food again, like pureed food. That is my plan. So, without knowing, this food could be going into his lungs. He could be aspirating. The only way I will know is he'll cough, he might choke. And obviously, if anyone does remember, a couple of years ago, he actually aspirated on some porridge, and he was in hospital for about 7 to 10 days, and we actually nearly lost him, which is why this whole year he's only had like, he's got fruit pots, they're about this big, and I've given him like 3-4 little, like half a spoon mouthfuls. I'm so scared to feed him now. So it has been in talks of, if he does start feeding again, then we will choose basically 15 minutes off a day, or however long off a day basically, and then a nurse will actually come in to do that feed. So just to make sure it's being done safely. Who knew you can get training on how to feed a child, but that will be happening if he takes a liking to the food. So now going back to the life expectancy anyway, I will just read this out, just in hope that to many of you it does make sense, because to me it doesn't. All I know is, like I said, 31 can be pushed to 42, but by the seams of things, from what I've got, 42 is the highest of his life expectancy. So, a 4-year-old child who rolls fully and is tube fed has 85%, 77%, 64%, and 56% survival probability to 15, 20, 25, and 30 years of age. Given this, it is very likely that Vinny will survive to and beyond 15 years, though there is some risk of mortality prior to reaching the age of 15. This next bit is what I assume is the doctor's thoughts. As a preliminary opinion, assuming Vinny retains his ability to roll by the age of 15 years and remains tube-fed, I shall estimate his life expectancy, though this should be revised at the repeat assessment around 6 years of age, based on the developmental gains he makes. Brooks' data indicates that a 15-year-old male who can roll or sit and is tube-fed has 27 additional years survival compared to 61.4 years in general population. Vinny's estimated life expectancy at the moment is, this is where I get confused. I've wrote down 38 because in the report I'm sure it says 38, but I remember Mum saying something about 31, but then this can be increased to 42. So that is it from there. But I just thought I'd do an update. With DBS, which I'm actually still getting many messages about and people asking, it's actually been put on hold, not even because of coronavirus. Because his neurologist at Evelina believes that Vinny is actually developing really well for a child of his condition, he wants to basically put it on hold and see how much further Vinny develops, because Vinny is rolling over both sides. He's getting from back to front, front to back. He's getting himself into a crawling position. All we need to work on is arm strength. Vinny is, we are hoping, we have an assessment Friday, starting, I think it's like intense physio. We've had to go privately. So this is actually another thing that I will make aware. I think it was like last year before, we raised a lot of money for Vinny to attend Freddie Farmer. If you remember, Vinny, they actually declined Vinny. They wanted him to do a few sessions of intense physio elsewhere before we do go there. But we couldn't, I wasn't paying out for him to attend somewhere else for him to then possibility of going there. It just seemed pointless. So we put it on hold, and we've actually found somewhere that we are going to use that money that was raised for him for. So I will be posting so many more updates so that you all know where your money is going. It hasn't been forgotten about, it hasn't been spent on absolute junk. So that is what that money will be getting used for. Yes, about the DBS, so that's actually been put on hold. In February, we will revise it all again. His neurologist will see like where Vinny's at, and we will decide if we want to go ahead and just do it, do the tests that are required for it, or if actually no, we do want to put it on hold, because obviously Vinny is due to start school in September. The whole plan before was he was going to have it before starting school, but due to him developing quite well, everything's been put on hold. So I hope this video, although it's basically 16 minutes long, it's a bit more like in depth rather than just trying to write a paragraph, trying to shorten that paragraph to then people still not understanding what I'm saying, especially like life expectancy. I couldn't even put that into words. But yeah, I hope that this does help out a lot more with where Vinny's at, and I will, in the new year, from next year, I will post so many more updates, and I will especially keep you updated on where your money is going and what we're doing with it. And like I said, at the moment, that will be the physio as long as he gets to go ahead on Friday. Thank you, guys.